John and I were filming a Q&A yesterday where we were asked about ticket prices, and that conversation took us down many different paths, and we chatted about it for, 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not quite sure. So I felt like that deserved its own kind of piece on the channel, on the podcast feed. So I've taken that away from the rest of the Q&A, and this is what that section unfolded as. As always, we're keen to hear your thoughts on this matter. It's quite a serious one, a big talking point amongst the Villa fan base at the moment. Something we wanted to highlight on the podcast properly, rather than kind of hide it away in a Q&A somewhere. We wanted to bring it to the forefront and kind of separate it out from the nonsense of the other things that we spoke about in that episode. So this is the little segment just about ticket prices at Villa and a wider conversation about football as well. So let us know your thoughts in the comments, please. John says, I'm a Claret member and only missed 4 games last season, including European games. I sit Trinity Upper, Price Zone 2. So if I wanted to go to 19 league games and 14, I wish it was 14, and 4 Champions League games, it would cost me £1,500 plus travel, food, etc. They're pricing out fans now, John says. What else do we expect? This has been a rising trend across the Premier League for a few years now, that prices keep going up, and I've said my piece on it plenty of times before. Me and Matt Kendrick did a piece last year when the season tickets came out, and they were going to be a price increase that, I was, why can't Villa be different? Why can't Villa be the club that takes a stand and says, no, we're going to keep things the same? And we understand that what everyone is going through at the moment in terms of the cost of living. So we're not going to increase your football, your escape from reality. And they did. And this year they've done it again. Only 5% to season ticket holders, but the match day prices are, in some places in the ground, astronomical rises, aren't they, for different price zones and what age bracket you fall into, and all those different things. Some of the price increases, when you look at it as a trend over a few years, is massive to what it was a few years ago. The counter argument to that is, well, we've gone from a declining Premier League club to a Championship club to a club that is now coming on the up again. So you're seeing a better product, so you have to pay more for that. Kind of get that to a degree. What I don't like is the argument of, it helps PSR and it's good for the books. Increasing the prices by that much is going to make such a minor difference to the club's accounts that, again, maybe I'm too naive, but maybe don't hire somebody like Steven Gerrard and then sack him 10 months later. Maybe don't waste money on signings with massive wages and then let them go on a free. Maybe get those things right before you start fleecing fans, basically.
Yeah, first, I understand where you're going with that, Dan, but obviously everything has a risk. But that's what makes it frustrating, I think, is what you're trying to say.
Because obviously you don't know you're going to get everything right, but we've made a lot of bad decisions in a row. It
is really difficult because the prices that fans have to pay to watch football now it's scandalous. It's outrageous, man. It's just. And what I would firstly say straight away is I'm not pinning this on Villa. I'm not just saying that because I'm a journalist who reports on them. Because this is every other club, and especially the clubs who are playing well. And I know that isn't like an excuse as such, but this is a business, and this is the product, right? So that's just, I think you just have to, although we don't want to, I think you just have to get over that, if I'm being blatantly, or if I'm being brutal about it, sorry. But that doesn't make it a point where you can't discuss it. I mean, it's mad. I think it's 15% rise for category A games, and then 10% rise for category B games across the stadium. I couldn't afford to pay. I know this might sound a bit mad because obviously it works out that you're paying for all the games, but you are doing it cheaper. But the thought of going to Villa Park for the cost of £70 to £78 if it's price zone 1 or A for a Cat A game, I don't know, a night match, for example, against Newcastle, to pay nearly 80 quid for a ticket, travel, top that up to 90, food 100. That's £100 on one night to watch a football match that will probably be live. People just can't afford that. That can be the difference between. I mean, everyone's different, right? Everyone lives in a different, but cost of living crisis, etc. It's just mental. I can't.
That's if you're going on your own as well. Imagine taking family of 4 and their kids with kids and
400, nearly 350, 400. It's staggering. They just can't afford that. It's mad. So yes, fans are definitely being priced out of football now. And I say football because it's not just a Villa problem. It's other.
No.
It's other.
But we're a Villa podcast, and Villa is our angle into this conversation.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's why the FSA. I asked them for a statement, and they obviously spoke about the situation, called it outrageous. But they put it in the sphere of this is football. It's not a club. This is how it's gone. So the way it changes is if something happens, I don't know, at government level, I suppose. I don't know what the independent people that are coming in, I think they're coming in now that Labour have won the election, what if they're going to change any of this, if there's any legislation that caps football ticket prices or anything like that. I don't know, because then the football clubs, obviously, there's a reason why they're at this price. Then the money that they earn from that, where does that come from? There's obviously a lot of knock on. But if you boil it all down, it's the loyal fans, and this is their thing, as you said, and this is their escape. This is our escape. I do it for a job. I couldn't imagine not doing this as a job at the moment, because it's like, this is all I kind of look at and do. If I couldn't go to Villa Park because I couldn't afford it, like it's that is the reality for people, though. Because I'm saying in a position of kind of privilege because I do this job, or that I could afford a season ticket. But if I weren't, if it was on a waiting list or whatever, and I had to pay, as I say, £300 something to sit in a good seat for my son or daughter's birthday, for example, you can't afford it, and that it shouldn't be the case. It should be something that you look forward to doing, and not feel like it's the only thing you could do for the whole month, because that is the reality of it. So, it's a really horrible situation. I don't know where to blame as such, because there's a reason why prices are going up. Obviously, there is inflation, etc. But I do think it needs to kind of be, I think this is government level now, because it's getting to the point of it's just absurd. Like it's just mental. This is a football match for 90 minutes. You can make the argument of, I'll stay 2 hours before, stay 2 hours after. But that's money. If I step out of the house, I'm spending £30 on a food shop. Oh no, that's nothing, brother. That's just for me for a few days. That's like 4 days worth of food. It's like nothing, and that's just for me. So don't worry.
Somebody worked out the inflation based off a Holton ticket that they found in the loft a few weeks ago. I think it was £22 or something. As say 15 years ago, like the inflation price means that ticket should now be worth something like 45, and it's like 70. Yeah. So get the inflation stuff, but it isn't in line with that. In terms of the argument of like, well, it's a better product now, so you kind of have to pay more. It's like we were saying before about relying your Champions League on your Champions League revenue. Well, yeah, it might be a better product, but maybe you go to Villa Park and lose 4-0.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that
anyway.
No, there's no argument for me that whatsoever about if you're playing better.
My season ticket this year was just over 800, which was slightly more than last year, and last year's was fair bit more than the year before. So from 2 years ago to now is quite an increase. But you say, we've gone from 14th and Steven Gerrard to 4th. Like, great, you're kind of getting better. You're kind of getting what you paid for. To an extent, you can put that argument in retrospect, because we've achieved something during that time, so it was worth the price. But when does that start to work in reverse?
Exactly.
When does my price come down? Like, how many seasons of rubbish do we have to have before they go, actually 800 is a bit, we'll drop it down a bit? Does it work the other way, or have we now reached the level where it only ever goes up?
Exactly. And again, I don't think Villa have said it. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure, we shouldn't say that if they've come out and said that because we're in the Champions League, tickets have been increased. I don't think that's the case. But you've seen, even just because my mates were telling me about it, they're Birmingham fans and their prices have gone up, I'm pretty certain. And obviously they've dropped down to the third tier of English football. That's pretty disgraceful, isn't it? Or at least they didn't go down in price, the tickets. So, that isn't an argument for me. And I don't think that is something that the club is trying to peddle, or any club, in fact, because there is just no argument for that. Clubs.
I don't think they have to say it, though.
No, but I don't think... Maybe that's something that fans think, but I can't see anyone. That's just something you can't buy, though, is it? Because we didn't go to Villa to watch good football. I mean, luckily we have that, but we'd watch Villa playing bad. Well, we have watched Villa play bad.
I've had a season ticket while we've been rubbish as well, so that's not the be all and end all, I suppose. They're never going to come out and go, well, we were good last year, so prices have to go up because we're hoping to be good again. Obviously, that's not going to fly. Well, whilst we're doing good and there's positivity there, let's cash in on that, because people will buy everything at the moment. Let's release a fourth kit because people will buy it because they love everything at the moment. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it feels a little bit like trying to...
I mean, you could go a different way and say... I mean, again, this sounds brutal, but it goes back to what I said before. It's a business, supply and demand. If Cambridge got to the Premier League, they wouldn't be doing League One tickets for or whatever they're in. So I don't say I understand it, but I don't think that's something that what I'm trying to say is, if that is the case, I don't think that would make a huge difference anyway. I just think clubs or inflation or whatever it is, it's going up too much, and there needs to become a point. For example, transfer fees. Transfer fees are always going up and going up and going up, but then that's because there's always money in football and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. But that's not because fans are buying tickets. It's because of other things. It's because of investment from countries that are backing football clubs. Like it's mental. We're talking about multi-billionaires and hundreds of billionaires in some quarters. So yeah, but for us who are paying £1,000 a season ticket or whatever it is, or 1,500, I think, as the guy said, for match by match tickets over the course of a season, you can't afford that. And I think it's it's getting to the point where it's, sorry, it already has got to the point. It got to the point years ago where it was unaffordable for many. It's to the point where I'm struggling to see how anyone can really justify, unless you're very wealthy, to go to a few games a season. Yes, some people could afford it, right? But at the cost of what? At the cost of not getting something else which is much more important to your life than watching Villa on TV. It's that, and that just should never be in the equation when we're talking about football. It's a really horrible situation, and unfortunately, which is the most kind of the worst thing about it, I don't see how this gets better, and that's why I think it needs to go to government level, and they need to put a cap on things and work with football clubs and say, well, what are you going to miss out on? I don't know. It's really difficult because the country's on its arse as it is at the moment. So
I think there's a lot of, for Villa specifically, I think there's a lot of good faith on the waiting list as well. That we hear a lot about the 30,000 that are waiting for season tickets. That if people can't afford it, Dave, I've been priced out. That's too much for me. Well, X fan will take his place, and Villa will be no worse off because of it.
Supply and
There's
demand.
a lot of people that signed up to that waiting list though years ago when prices weren't what they are now. It's very different to sign up to a waiting list and then actually when your turn comes to the front of the queue to part with £850 when you originally signed up to the waiting list when it was probably about £550. So there may be 30,000 on the waiting list, but how many of that 30,000 would actually stump up the cash? Again, it almost works in the opposite of supply and demand, doesn't it? Is that waiting list going to dwindle out? The Villa can no longer rely on it as kind of a buffer of, well, we can kind of do what we want because there are people here waiting to come and take someone else's place. When there's no longer a waiting list, you can't then keep taking the basically because there's no one else to fall back on.
I get that. The season tickets have gone up by only 5%, which is probably a score, to be honest, in the modern climate of football. But then obviously the knock-on effect is that the Villa are about to make up that money on match-by-match tickets, which I think works to your point, Dan, because the people who can't afford tickets, they're the ones who have basically taken the hit because they've been having to pay more because they can't afford because they're not on a waiting list. Or sorry, they are on a waiting list and they can't get season tickets. So either way, to kind of work in a roundabout way, yes, season tickets have only gone up a little bit. I guess that's good. But then we're a whole Aston Villa fan base and there has been suffering in it because tickets have gone up 15, 10%. Yeah, it's not a good situation, as I say. My blame isn't with Villa itself. It's with all of the clubs and it's with football. And now it needs to be taken further and there needs to become some sort of legislation because to say people are being priced out is kind of an understatement now. It's like if you're paying for these games with a season ticket, you're probably sacrificing something that you probably shouldn't be, basically.
Yeah.
Just to be watching football. And now, obviously, that's your decision. I think most people are doing it because they love it so much. And that's, as you say, done their escape. But you shouldn't be made to kind of sacrifice certain things because of it. It should be something that you can do in your pastime and not think about it as much as what you're having to think about now and weigh up decisions that you shouldn't be weighing up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's an interesting debate, John. I'm keen to see what people in the comments think. I want to read different people's viewpoints. I'm a season ticket holder. I have been since 2007, I think.
Yeah.
I've renewed for this year despite the price increases. You were a season ticket holder, but ultimately this doesn't affect you personally because you now go to the games as part of your job. So we are a small minority of the representation across the fan base. So different people will be affected in different ways. So I'd be really interested to read what the audience thinks. So do get involved in the YouTube comments or on Spotify with your experiences and your thoughts on the ticket prices. It is important to raise it as best we can, but we can only offer our personal viewpoints because that's all we can do. But by hearing what other people think and what they're going through, we can hopefully try and share some of that possibly.
Yeah, but it's kind of in 12 months' time, Dan will be saying the same thing, won't we? It'll be like they've gone up again.
Probably, yeah.
People can't afford it. And even if they don't go up again, it doesn't change it. They haven't gone down. So, yeah, as I said, we'll kind of finish on it now, but my overall importance is that it needs to change. Like, it's pointless just saying, oh, we're going to freeze, we're going to do this. People just can't afford it, full stop. So we need to have legislation now where it's capped. I don't know how they do it in Germany or in other countries, but there needs to be something in place because there's a lot of football fans in the country, and I don't know what the percentage of people who feel like they've been like squeezed to the max in terms of the finances because they're playing for football, and that just can't be the case. Like, that is the escape. You work and then you watch football. Well, most of us anyway. And then you work and then you watch football. That's it. That's how you get by. So yeah, it has to change.